All right, guys, I would like to welcome you to the Startup Guides Speaker Series. If you're not familiar with this show, what we do is we interview all sorts of fascinating, insightful, and informative guest speakers. So we have very inspirational people and insightful folks like Dustin Herte who's the CEO and founder of Blue Line Battery. So we're going to be spending, obviously, the majority of our time interviewing Dustin today. And we will, basically, the format's going to be 20 minutes of questions and then 10 for Q&A. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, you can ask those questions, basically after the last 20 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll call through those questions. We'll answer them to the best of our ability. We will be downloading the file this afternoon, editing that, and we'll be posting that up to YouTube, Twitter, and YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And so if we don't get to your questions, what we will do is we will answer them on those social media platforms. And just like right now, if you're watching us live, you can go to YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, and that will be at Startup Guides. So you can go into either of those channels and check us out. So first things first, I just want to talk a little bit about the evolution of what's happened this year. So at the beginning of the year, I made a commitment to help small businesses. And so the first thing I did is I wrote this book called Restart, the Small Business Guide to Thriving During Chaos. If you guys know me well, I don't have a problem with pivots. So I shouldn't say pivots, pivots and moving along. So the next thing that I did is I created a Facebook group and a community with a few other folks. And that is Restart Small Biz as well, which evolved into a weekly show, which evolved into a YouTube channel. I do commit every year to help a different group of people. I started that about 3 years ago. So next year, what I'm going to be focusing is on, and probably beyond that, is going to be providing digital curriculum to secondary ed, which, if you're not familiar, that is basically juniors and, middle schools and high schools. And our focus is going to be providing transformative digital education courses. And what I mean by that is any curriculum related to digital, we will be providing to those schools. Synchronous videos, which will be instruction by me. I launched the digital marketing curriculum at UW-Madison, the MBA program, a few years ago. And what I've decided to do is create obviously a totally different version of that. Plus, we're going to have subject matter experts with experience with tens of millions of dollars in Facebook ads, Google ads. We've got a marketing automation expert, basically the world-renowned subject matter expert in LinkedIn. So they will be teaching the courses along with me. We're running a beta. In case you're watching this and you're interested for your high school, we're going to be running a beta, which will start, a pilot, which will be running January through the end of February after our pilot. As we know with startups, after we do our discovery, we'll be modifying the curriculum, and our plan is to do a full roll by March 15th. And so that will be available to any high school in the U.S. We've got 3 high schools that will be coming online for our pilot. I can only announce one of them because we've got some final details we need to work out. But the high school that I can announce, we're really happy to say that the Barrington High School, just outside Chicago, will be one of our first 3 schools. And we've got a school in Wisconsin that we've selected, and another one in San Francisco. Our long-term goal is to have people from Facebook, Google, Amazon, and other tech companies teaching courses. After we do the digital marketing course, the initial digital marketing course, we're going to be moving into cryptocurrency and software development and mobile app development. So if you've got any questions or you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to hellodigitaled.com. The name of that service is going to be Hello Digital. And if you'd like to learn more about that, again, just go to Hello Digital Ed. We've got FAQ at the bottom, and then there's a contact form. So last thing that we need to do is give a big thank you to StreamYard. So there's basically 2 software platforms in the world that I cannot live without. And one of them is Slack, and the other one is StreamYard. If you're not familiar with StreamYard, it's amazing software. I first learned about this a few months ago when Guy Kawasaki uses it. And basically what StreamYard is software that allows you to simulcast across multiple social media platforms. Fantastic software. So we're delighted to have StreamYard as our sponsor today. We'll also put a link to StreamYard that we've got, which will provide you a discount on StreamYard service. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is invite our guest, Dustin Herte. And Dustin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Great to be here.
Okay, so let's get right down to it. Let's hear your personal background, not too personal, but your personal background. Everybody likes to hear where people came from. So tell us a story, Dustin.
Sure. Okay. So let's see. I grew up in a family that had, I guess, some entrepreneurial drive.
Okay.
Parents ran a company that was actually a little ski area up in north of Milwaukee, right?
Okay.
And that shut down when I was back in high school. And the whole while, you know, my dad was teaching me all the mechanical things about how to fix things and build things within the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as that shut down, I found myself stressed, but instead of being destructive with my stress, I got constructive. So I started taking a lot of the parts that I was finding around the shop as the shop was kind of coming down,
Okay.
and starting to build new projects out of it, just to keep my hands moving, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So meanwhile, I'm in college and I'm figuring these things out, and I'm starting to build up some
MSOE, right? MSOE.
School of Engineering, correct.
Mm-hmm.
My degree is in international business from there. I graduated in 3 years.
Okay.
So I'm spending my time there starting to build up these electric bikes from these parts that I found. And at one point after college, we had a very legitimate high power electric bike that would go something like 50 miles an hour and had a 300-mile range. It was
wow.
Going to have, right?
Elon must eat your heart out. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we took that to market, right? And we found out that we had to build our own batteries to make that the rest of the technology perform, right? So that kind of got me up to the point where we had a big business pivot, and Blue Line came from there.
Okay, gotcha. So let's dive into the problem. One of the things when I'm coaching and consulting to startups and teaching my students, one of the things we talk about is don't just create a product and live in this alternate reality where it's they build it and they will come, because generally, obviously, you're destined to fail if you decide to do that. So let's talk about the problem that is currently in the market and was in the market previously that you decided that you wanted to address.
Sure. So I mentioned there's a big business pivot with the electric bike company. So we weren't seeing enough sales. We were seeing a lot of liability with those electric bikes. And I'd mentioned that we had designed a really good battery pack, right? Mm-hmm. So about 3.5, 4 years ago, we started looking at some other directions we wanted to go with that technology. Mm-hmm. And we discovered that the industrial battery space, think like forklifts, big stationary solutions, things like that, mm-hmm. is wide open using a lead acid battery technology at the time that was inferior to what we do, right? And when you design something that you can put on an electric bike and set range records, you start realizing that, like, you know, we built something that was worthy of taking to the market. Right. So we did, right? So we retooled that whole design and started building, instead of, 50-pound electric bike batteries, multi-1,000-pound industrial batteries for things like these forklifts, right? Gotcha. So that's what we produce now, is these gigantic 3,000, 4,000 pound huge lithium ion batteries for forklift and industrial applications.
Okay.
Because we felt like there was an opportunity there and we had to produce something that was going to do the industry some good.
Gotcha. So I just want to go back and detail for those people that aren't familiar with lead acid battery, if they're not old like me and aren't familiar with bag phones and lead acid batteries. Let's talk about those specific challenges. What's going on in those warehouses, factories, or other places where your particular, or where the lead acid batteries, excuse me, are being used and were being used.
Right, sure. So I want to start off with a bit of an analogy. GM tried to create an electric car in the 90s that was largely powered by lead acid batteries, and it failed. Okay. Tesla comes around with a much better battery technology that powers that whole system, and they're successful, right? Yep. One of the big reasons that is the case is because that technology pushes the rest of the technology forward. So in the warehouse environment, similar situations exist where like the lead acid doesn't keep up. So the problem with lead acid batteries there are a couple of them. One of the big ones is that if you're running a lead acid battery for 2 or 3 shifts in your warehouse, you need to physically remove that battery from the forklift, put it on charge, because it takes 8 hours to charge these batteries, and put another lead acid battery that was just on charge into your forklift, and then go. The problem is these batteries are a couple thousand
pounds.
And
they're heavy, right? I presume. I mean, we're not talking, 12 ounces. How heavy are those batteries?
Yeah, more than my car.
Which is how many pounds?
2,000 to 3,000 pounds, right?
Okay.
So
yeah, they're pulling it off a rack and throwing it across the room like a candy bar. This is a significant effort to take this battery out. Out of curiosity, how do they use another forklift to take it out, or how do they get that battery off?
That's a way to do it. There is some specialized battery changing equipment, but a lot of the times we see another forklift come in and lift out the battery and move it. So it's really down to whatever the customer wants to do, and they're all different, and it's just not a good solution. I mean, people are, for lack of better terms, soft and squishy, and when you're moving 3,000 pound blocks of material around by hand or with forklifts with people standing around, it's dangerous.
Okay.
Right. And then the last benefit of our batteries that I really want to focus on too is that they are just plain more efficient. Okay. Big lead acid batteries and forklifts get hot when they're charged. And they burn off about 30% of their charge or so as heat coming in. Where lithium ion burns about 5% of it off as heat.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So there is another big factor, as I recall, which we ran into, which is the safety factor. Do you want to talk, because there's some very unfortunate things that happen to lead acid batteries that can hurt people. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the weight isn't good. The acid spills aren't good. I mean, it's they're not an ideal design for the application, unfortunately. It's something along the lines of like, this is what the industry's ended up with. Right. And this is kind of how we've learned to make the batteries work. So that's where they ended up.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So now I think everybody has an idea, or a relatively good idea in terms of foundation of this sector that you're going after. So just to clarify, I mean, you've talked about industrial applications beyond factories and warehouses. Let's talk, well, actually, we'll talk about the future in a minute. What other applications are there? Because my understanding is there's portable versions of the batteries as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there are. So we've got a version of this designed to move equipment down the production line and through its shipping process before it ends up at the end user, because the end user usually has the battery that gets joined to that equipment.
Gotcha.
It's tough to move an electric vehicle down an assembly line when it doesn't have any battery in it, right? So we've designed a very small portable version of that battery on wheels that we can roll in and set up on the forklift or piece of equipment and plug right in.
Gotcha. Okay. So now let's move into the story, which is probably what most people want to hear. So as we know, Dustin obviously knows, and people that are watching, the life of an entrepreneur, if you've had a startup, is a roller coaster. So, and usually people talk, they glamorize the capital raise, they glamorize, the exit. And frankly, the raise, there isn't usually a raise. I believe the average of startups, I believe 4 to 5% of them actually raise capital. And many of them, will vaporize within a couple of years. So let's talk about the challenges and take the shine, first of all, off the life of an entrepreneur and of the team members, because you guys obviously have a rock star team as well. Tell us about the challenges.
Sure. This is something that I always love digging into, because people do exactly what you said. They glamorize it, and then you show them behind the curtain what's going on, and they go like, that's difficult. It can be difficult to do this, right? Mm-hmm. So you said the raise is glamorized. So let me take you to the time before the raise. Okay. When we were still developing this technology on a absolute shoestring budget. There were times in this company's history.
Because this is not a cheap venture. We're not selling books or pens, right? So
right. When your test unit is $10,000 worth of hardware to build it, plus the engineering time, it's tough, and you don't even know what your customer is going to say until you get the product out the door. So that could all be for waste, right? So prior to a successful funding round, there were situations where we would skip more than one payroll at a time, like 1 or 2 or 3 payrolls in a row would be skipped, right? And it's amazing to have a team that can get behind that still and understand the direction the company's going,
right? Okay.
And put the effort behind it still and know what they're going for,
right?
But certainly before the raise, it was a challenge, and then the raise is a challenge too to get the allegiances you need. But I will say fundraising once you're moving is not nearly as big of a challenge as like getting the product ready to go where you're good to fundraise.
Right.
Because there's this time in a company where you're not sure you're moving the right direction, you don't have enough information, and you don't have any cash at all, right? And how do you get up to the level of being competitive with technologies, with competitors that already have their legs under them? You have to do more with significantly less to get to that point. And it's a tremendous challenge. The stresses are very real.
Right. I think the other important point in there, and I'm guessing you'll agree at the risk of asking a leading question, you talked about payroll. Typically when you're starting up, because there isn't money dropping from the heavens, usually. Now, obviously, you bootstrap this one, so there could be, right? So you might get an investment right out of the gates. Where the person that's founding it, maybe they have their own capital. Talk a little bit about, at the risk of getting too personal, the sacrifices that team members make typically in terms of pay, and including the founder. Just kind of dive into that too. At least talk about it's real, right? And the fact that everybody's all in.
Sure. To speak to that a little bit. In addition to missing paychecks, everybody has to deal with a standard of living that's a little bit significantly worse than it could be to get to the payout at the end, right?
Worse than college student life, right? Many times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm thankful every day for the ecosystem we found ourselves in here in Whitewater.
Right.
For anybody who doesn't know, we have part of our base of operations out of the University Tech Park, what they call the Innovation Center.
Yep.
And that facility has been just ideal for us, because it's not just, are there showers in the building if we need them at night, right? But like the people in the group have been just fantastic to help us move forward. I've got the ear of anybody I need within the ecosystem here. Anytime I need it, any time of day, weekend included. And that as a resource has just been incredible. It's been a lifeline at times. It's been a way to get ahead of the market at times, and more now than ever, it's been a way to get ahead of the market. Right. But it's just everybody needs an ecosystem like this. So I'll recommend anybody starting a company, find your people, and that also includes a place.
Right. Yeah. By the way, I'm so impressed with the Innovation Center, and I've worked with students here for years. So I manage the entrepreneurship program here and teach. And we have a Launchpad program, which is an accelerator like Generator, Techstars, YC, if you're familiar with them. And having this office space, and it's way more than office space, and this is a gorgeous facility. There's, training rooms, meeting rooms, amazing internet service, consulting services, coaching services, and the cost is negligible. There's also virtual opportunities here, which there are a lot of accelerators. So if you don't need an office space, You can be on a rotational basis and come in and use the office space. So incubators, guys, are really valuable regardless of where you're located, because beyond office space, it can provide a support network for you, which is really important when you're starting out. So, all right, so let's move into the awesome stuff. The stuff that people usually only hear about. Now we've talked about the rough stuff. So let's talk about the accomplishments. When we talk about the roller coaster, let's talk about here at the Apex. Tell us about what's going on, all the successes you've had, you and your team, obviously.
Sure, absolutely. So we're at that point within the growth of the company where we're having back-to-back successes with our customers. We're having back-to-back successes in the sales front, and it's an interesting thing to just have to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
with the demand that we're starting to see at the company. I mean, we had the beginning of the company, we didn't know what the market even really looked like in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. And we're now at a point within the growth of the company where we're trying to make projections, and we're consistently starting to outsell our projections, and we're having to scramble every single time to find more resource. Yeah, exactly, right? We're trying to find more resources to be able to build out to those bigger actualized sales numbers. And there's no end in sight for that right now. And it's
right.
Crazy to see where we're at, but it's a weird jump to go from like, things aren't quite there to like, wow, we're selling and we're doing it very well and we're engineering very well and things are coming out of the fold perfectly. Customers are excited and we're starting to, I will still say it's a struggle, but it's a good struggle.
Right.
Just trying to keep things moving quick enough because the demand is there. The demand is huge.
Yeah, I think I'm going to fall into teacher mode a little bit, but there's going to be students that are watching this, and frankly, good lessons for first-time entrepreneurs in particular. One of the things you'll find is that starting out, there's risk, especially if you're doing it on the side, right? You're foregoing an income. So I went from I was six figures to basically my paycheck was nothing. Started, and my wife and I agreed that I'd start with $200 in investment capital. And it was a marketing firm, and my first gig was making 6,000 marketing calls as part of my ad agency. So starting out is tough. But one of the things that most founders will experience in startups is the stress / I'm actually going to say the level of risk increases. This is what I've found on a kind of a step basis, right? The stress and the risk doesn't usually go like this. It's starting out risk, hiring your first employee, maybe committing, equity, taking on an investor, right? Committing to that first order when you don't have the money to fulfill it. Guilty. And so this stress, you go through these steps. Now, and the risk, right? You would think the risk diminishes, but if you're not well funded, that risk actually increases / the probability of getting vaporized, right? And coming to the end of your runway. That risk for a while until you have funding is actually increases, right? At the risk of asking you a leading question, have you experienced that as well?
I'm finding our risk going up to an extent, but also risk getting mitigated in a lot of other senses, like having good investors, having a more tried and true design.
Right.
These things put the risk more on things like items like supply chain and production capability, and less on the fundamental engineering design of the product, which is great.
Right.
And so it's a change of risk. And the other thing is too, I'm finding us more capable of dealing with these tougher situations as we're building out a better portfolio of resources.
Right. Okay. All right. So it's time to brag. It's brag time. What can you reveal in terms of tangible successes? I should have asked you this before the show because you might strangle me afterwards. Can you name clients that you've landed, or at least applications that you've sold? Or would you rather not, and you'd like to wring my neck later?
I'd rather not wring your neck later on that.
Okay, all right.
But I can say that if you walk into, actually, let me share just a real quick story that kind of implies where we're at.
Please.
So going into an investor pitch over the weekend.
And you're talking last weekend, which was
last weekend, yeah. We had a
right.
Yeah. Weird time to have it, but when people are interested, you got to answer those calls, right? I walked into a Walmart with a basket to find some of the products that I knew we moved through down the production line or through through the warehouses, or as you would say, powered by Blue Line, right? Some of these products, right?
Yep.
I thought a basket was going to get me through Walmart, right? I thought I was going to have a good maybe half dozen items and I'd be out the door, right? And that was going to be the good representation I wanted. I got through the third aisle and had to turn around and grab a cart. And by the end of my little trip, I had $400 or $500 worth of items, that all of these things, distinct items that are their own category, that we support the warehousing process on with our batteries.
Okay.
So I can't name drop too many names, but every aisle at Walmart that I went through, I saw something.
Wow. And so what can I'm going to press you here. This is a neck strangling moment. So what successes can you share from a sales standpoint? Because obviously you haven't just made one sale and generated $500. Can you talk about the size of deals or total revenue to date, or hint at sectors? What can you give the viewers?
Sure, I think I can speak to all those a little bit. So revenue to date, we just crossed the $1 million mark. We figured that out this morning. But that was up from $700,000 a month and a half ago. So we're on this really sharp growth trend. We're projecting quite a bit more than that in the next year. And then our 5-year outlook is looking very good for where we want to be at when we exit. I won't speak to those numbers exactly, but they are, we'll be doing very well.
Okay.
And then any other questions you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, so I mean, actually, you hit it, right? So how soon, I'm not going to let go of this one. How soon will you be able to reveal who some of these clients are? Because obviously, Kristen, who heads up your marketing and your sales folks as well, and I'm going to have you give a shout out to those folks at the end. You obviously want to use those in your marketing, right? So who they are / will it be available in your marketing, or do you not want to answer that?
I can't talk too much about it. We'll get to that point where we can talk about those. A lot of those customers are on the second or third round of testing.
I think we seized there for a minute.
So that's kind of what's driving a revenue right now, is that sort of growth metric.
Okay. We lost you, Dustin. We lost about the last 10 seconds. You seized up. Okay. The last thing we heard is that's what drives the investment.
Yeah. So yes, that's something to speak to, right? Okay. So a lot of what we're seeing right now is, so this is the reason I'm not giving up customer names yet.
Okay.
Those customers put an order for a battery or two, and then they do another 5, and a lot of those customers are like, okay, time to build a factory with these now. Like, the next factory we're going to build is going to just be Blue Line powered, right? So we've got a decent number of instances of that occurring. Mm-hmm. But that's when we get to, like, I've got 5 or 10 factories powered by Blue Line, we can start talking about.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. So the last section of the show, by the way, I've got Dustin's email up there, so you can type it, write it. I don't think probably anybody's using pens and paper. Maybe some folks that are out there. Take your smartphone, grab a pic. And by the way, this video, we will have this up on YT on YouTube on the Startup Guides channel this afternoon at 5. So can you give a shout out to your team? And then we'll move into next steps.
Sure. Yeah. I don't really, as far as the team goes, it's been incredible because this thing is built around the team. It's not like, if it were me, I'd still be, working in a basement somewhere on the trike company. Like, things have changed. So.
Okay. Can you give them like each part of their 15 minutes of fame? Even if it's just a few seconds, just say names and roles for us.
Sure. We'll start out with Kristen, marketing. Fantastic job making the company look like, it's a top player, which that's what our marketing represents, right?
Yep.
Tyson, sales, you guys are killing it. Thank you for the support there. You're doing great. This is how we're going to grow the company together. Ben in operations, fantastic, because this is how we're going to be building out the production that we need to do. John is COO. The guy who's helping me with all the things that I can't, handle on my plate at one time is fantastic for that. I think I pretty much covered everybody in the executive team.
Okay. Any coaches, people that have helped you along the way that you'd like to give a shout out to as well?
Sure. I'll list a couple. Yeah, a couple of them. Michael Ducas is he's an investment advisor. He's been fantastic.
Okay.
I guess we hired another one of them that are one of our sales guys, but a guy by the name of Mark, who's fantastic with his. He came from another big lead asset company and then ended up moving and working with us. Right. He's been fantastic as well and just advising and getting us to the point, and then he joined the sales team. So I think it's great there as well. And then I guess I won't get into too many specifics, but most of the companies in Wisconsin that deal with batteries like this are some degree advisors for us.
Right.
One degree or another.
And then obviously we've got Whitewater Innovation Center staff. We've got Mark Johnson, the director, John DeGraff, Tim Carr, the risk of plugging myself, me. Are there any other folks in the Innovation Center that you'd like to thank?
No, I think you named them, but each of those names, they absolutely deserve their own recognition. They've been, I think I've had emergency meetings with each of those people at one time or another.
All right, so I might go to another question that you don't like, but do you want to give a shout out to any of the investors that have put money in the company, starting with people in the, if there's in the Whitewater area, or investors you have now, or would you rather not reveal?
I don't want to make any statements on investors. I don't know how privately those investors want to keep that information, but there's a team of about 10 investors out there that have stake in Blue Line, and they range from having capital and having interest to, like, on the other end of things, like they are customers of ours, right? So yeah, it's been great. Without naming any specific names, you know who you are. It's been fantastic. So we've been excited about working with each other.
And then there's organizations, I'm just going to name them so we don't play a guessing game here. Obviously, the University of Wisconsin Whitewater, thank you to them. The city, Whitewater City, which, is the owner of the building itself. If I'm missing anybody, you guys can rip me on social media. No, please don't do that. We'll put them in the show notes if we forgot anybody. Okay, so we're a little bit over, and if you guys know me, I am militant about time, but this is a fascinating interview, and we'll go to Q&A in a few minutes. Give us the next steps / the ask. So I'm not sure if you have an ask, but go ahead and give us that.
Sure. So yeah, as far as the next steps go within the company, we are trying to aggressively scale our production efforts through a combination of internal production, sourcing new, we're in a hiring spree right now, and it's going to be like that for a long time.
And basically, what roles you're looking for?
Kind of name it at this point, and we're looking for that. So everything from sales through engineering, through production, through supply chain experts. We're kind of looking for. We're building a bigger company, right? And everything needs to improve or increase. So kind of everything at this point.
If you can hear us.
I hear you now. I hear you, Dave.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, we need a bigger company in all fronts. So most positions we're looking to hire at some point in relatively near future.
Okay. Cool.
From engineering through supply chain through production, everything.
Can obviously the supply chain folks and manufacturing folks, because we're in a remote world now, can any of those people work remotely?
Yeah. I would say most of them could, actually, now that I think about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the last thing, what's the ask? How can viewers or anybody help you and the company take it to the sky, the stratosphere?
Sure. If anybody knows anybody who would be a good applicant to work here, that's the place to start.
Okay.
Am I allowed to talk about the rest of our raise still? Dave, within this?
Yes, please do.
So we are raising the remaining 500 or so thousand from our Series A round right now. So we've got some open slots for funding still.
Okay.
That's mostly to do things like build out additional inventory.
Okay.
Because that's one of our struggles right now is like we need more inventory because we keep selling through it.
Okay.
So yeah. Otherwise, like I said, I think what if I've learned anything recently, it's that your talent pool drives your company forward. So we're really looking to increase the size of that talent pool.
Right. Okay, cool. So a couple of thank yous, and then we're going to go to questions in the chat. Again, I apologize, we're running over, but we will have the video on YT on YouTube this afternoon. So I want to give a big thank you out to StreamYard there, again, the provider of the software we use to simulcast. I want to give a thank you out to the Innovation Center. Obviously, I want to give a thank you to Dustin, all the folks at Blue Line. I do want to give 2 final plugs. Startupguides.co, which is my company. One of the things that we're going to be rolling out right around January 1st is a course called Introduction to Digital Marketing for Startups and Small Businesses. That is going to be an asynchronous online class. And what that means, if you don't know, is people will be able to go online. Obviously, the target is startups and small businesses, trying to help them get to audiences which are more remote than ever before. This will be about 20 hours of content. It's me teaching and then the subject matter experts. You can get more information on that at startupguides.co. We also just started a Facebook group for first-time entrepreneurs, and we are going to restrict it to that. It's going to be a place where first-time entrepreneurs can come and learn and network and share challenges. We're going to have a weekly virtual group. I won't say group therapy, but kind of for first-time entrepreneurs. Plus, we're going to make that educational as well. And then the last thing I want to give a mention to is a startup that I'm launching early next year, along with a dear friend of mine, ex-Oracle guy from San Francisco. We're going to be bringing on a few more people from San Francisco from tech companies that I can't mention, but they're not small. And a guy from in the Boston area as well. So our goal with this is to provide national coverage, providing virtual digital education to secondary ed. And that'll be injected right into existing curriculum. So if you've got any questions on that, just go to hellodigitaleded.com. All right, so now is the time to go to questions. So we've got a shout out from my buddy John, who's a fellow mountain biker and a tech entrepreneur from San Francisco. We've got a question from Charlie. What sparked your inspiration to develop Blue Line batteries? What other efficiency energy sources were you considering? So I think we talked about the inspiration, Charlie, and if we didn't, you could hit me. Excuse me, but figuratively, by the way, not literally. By the way, Charlie's helping us with the production of the show. What other high efficiency energy sources were you considering? I mean, obviously, you're not going to put solar panels on forklifts. Generally, I can't imagine you would. You'd have to be a very warm climate. So what other energy sources are you looking at in the future?
Sure. So one of the beautiful things about where we're at with our development here, not just like as a society with new concepts that are coming out, most of these things have some prioritization in their design to be more, green tech focused, right? So a lot of because he asked about what other efficiency related topics we're looking at. So a lot of what we're looking at is already focused in that field. Just talking strictly about the technology itself, we're looking at capacitors being a potential replacement for batteries on the road, and we're ready to take that up when it happens. Capacitors can charge at least 10 times, maybe 100 times faster than a battery can, and last 1,000 times more cycles, right? So we've got a concept going for a battery system that would, a capacitor-based battery system that would charge very rapidly when it passes a charge, like a charge terminal. And it would only last for 5 minutes at a time, but it would consistently charge every time it goes by the charge terminal.
Gotcha.
So concepts like that, we're always trying to be cutting edge, and that's one of the things I love about what I do is I've got good reason to play in the workshop now and start learning, about new concepts, new technology.
Okay. So another question that actually came in on my way in this morning from a friend of mine who couldn't make the show is, let's talk a little bit about sales channels, because you don't have a traditional sales channel where you're just selling direct to customers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the sales channels?
Sure. So we our main go-to-market strategy right now, and it is variable, of course, because things change, but there are basically battery distributors throughout the U.S. That already sell batteries, right? So right now we're focused on making a lot of friends in that sector, and letting their sales team pitch our batteries because they see a lot of good reason to start selling our batteries.
Right.
Long term, I mentioned it's going to change over time.
Right.
We're going to try to maintain those relationships, but at the same time, long term, we're going to be looking to pair our batteries in new equipment that'll go out the door with our batteries sealed away inside, ready to go.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the benefits of the replacement cycle of lithium is it matches how long equipment typically lasts.
Right.
So that's where we're headed with that down the road. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to end on this note. This was the title of the show, but I thought it was actually appropriate to end on this. Forbes 30 under 30. So, by the way, if you guys can smash the thumbs, smash the love, just to give Dustin a little shout out here on that. Talk to us about the Forbes 30 under 30, which you just got the honor of being selected for.
Yeah, that's been a game changer. It's been fun because we kind of have been pushing off any recognition we could get out of this because we just want to keep focusing on building up the company. But several of our customers, like half a dozen of our customers, nominated me for this.
Wow.
So after one of the team members was like, hey, consider, and that's what ended up happening. So apparently Forbes did a bunch of interviews with a lot of our customers, and then they're like, yeah, you need to be on the list here. So it's nice to get some recognition after, it's been a long road. So it's nice to get that. And I'll pat myself on the back once, twice, and then I got to get right back to work. So that's kind of how I view it. But it's, I'm proud of it. It's been nice.
Right. Yeah. That's another one of the kind of the lessons, is you think you raise the capital, you make that first sale, you're like, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. And when you get there, usually you don't have the time to celebrate. And then afterwards you look back and say, oh my gosh, we need to celebrate. And usually it's not just Chicago dogs. No rip on people from Chicago. Love Chicago pizza, love Chicago dogs. But usually it's that. And so it is important, obviously, to take the time to kind of celebrate, right, when things happen, which I think is, a good lesson as well. So, all right. Congratulations to Dustin on the honor. Congratulations to the team. You guys, I know you guys personally, amazing work. All the folks at the Whitewater Innovation Center, and local communities, thanks to the investors, which can't be named now, but probably will be in the future. If you're interested in investing, or your potential customer or potential employee, as you can see at the bottom, you can email Dustin, and the risk of insulting your intelligence, bluelinebattery.com is the URL where people can reach you. Again, Dustin, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Guys, what we're going to be doing every 2 weeks with the Startup Guys Speaker Series, we'll be interviewing other fascinating entrepreneurs, inspirational people, and insightful ones. And we're also going to have very practical content on the show. So, for example, next week we have Scott Weingart from CTM, and Scott's a CPA/attorney, and he's going to be talking about important tips for taxes for startups and small businesses. We're going to have IP attorneys. We're going to have angel investors coming on. We're going to have digital marketers. So we want to make sure these interviews aren't the classic rah-rah, which you see on a lot of podcasts. And how did you get here? But we want to really make sure we're giving you meat and informative informative folks as well. And you can find out about those shows. Just hit us up on Facebook. Again, that's Startup Guides. We do have a group, Startup Guides First Time Entrepreneurs, which you can get to us on Facebook, YouTube, Startup Guides, Twitter, Startup Guides, and contact forms everywhere, so you can reach out to me and other folks on my team. So thanks a lot, everybody. We're 15 minutes over on time, but I don't think anybody is going to debate the fact that Dustin was awesome. We learned a lot, and you know, we'll definitely have you back on the show maybe in a year, and you can reveal some of the stuff that you didn't want to reveal to me today.
Hopefully there'll be even better stories by then.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And be safe out there, folks.
Thank you.